Hi guys, Ray here from City Fan TV, and I'm joined tonight by the lads from Bolt from the Blue. We've got Bernard and Mike. How you doing, guys?
Wonderful, mate. Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Good to hear. Good to hear. We're going to talk about Erling Haaland tonight. Erling Haaland. Right now, he's the only hottest property left in football because we've seen Vlahovic go to Juventus, where it looks like Mbappe's headed to Real Madrid.
Lingard's still about, mate. You can't say things like that with Lingard still around.
Lingard, the hottest property in football. Well, actually, they were fighting over him, Newcastle and West Ham. But seriously, Haaland is the hottest property in world football right now that hasn't made a decision as to where he's going to go. So in this little podlet and little video, we are going to look at various aspects. We're going to start by looking at why people would want him, as if that's not obvious, but we'll look at that briefly. Who would want him? And that's quite obvious as well. And then we'll look at who can afford him, because obviously that's really, really important. And then where he would want to go, how much of an influence his agent is. And then we'll look at it from the City point of view, and we'll bring in other aspects as well from the City side of things. So we'll go through some basic stats. I'm sure most of you're well aware from watching him in the Champions League. He's a hot goal scorer, really hot goal scorer. Since he's been out of Norway, he had one full half season. He didn't even get 2 full seasons. He was there for about a year and a bit to Red Bull Salzburg, and he scores a goal a game in the league. That's basically how I look at it. He scores a goal a game. In Austria, played 16 games in the league, scored 17 goals. Whilst he's been at Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga, he's played 57 league games, scored 56 goals, goal a game. So he's excellent. He's in cups and stuff. He did really well in Austria in the Champions League. I think that's another reason why people noticed him. So I'm going to start with you, Bernard. What makes everybody want Erling Haaland so much?
I think you just said it there. The goal ratio is pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, and he's always been, apart from recently, he's always been quite good on the injury front as well, hasn't he? For a big lads can sometimes suffer a little bit, but I'm a little bit worried that he did have a bit of an injury, didn't he? And obviously he's come back as he had another injury since, I think, Ray as well recently.
I don't think he's missed that much because he's played 14 league games this season, and they're halfway through the season. Last season, he played 28 league games.
Yeah, so it's but it is a worry for me because these big lads, and he puts himself about a bit. He doesn't shirk anything. To be honest with you, it's a sort of player who obviously, perhaps the way we play doesn't really suit us at the moment. How we play our game, we'd have to Pep would have to have a sea change or a total change in how we play our styles. But there are other teams out there who play pretty more direct, play with the basic number 9, if you like, and the striker that is fitting perfectly. And I think obviously his goal per game, as you said, basically it just says it all. I mean, there's not many of those guys come about, and he's played at different levels, of course, and he's not playing at a bad level now, is he? It's all right. They play some rubbishy teams, of course they do, but we always think certainly if you play in the German league and do well, you can probably play certainly in the English league, etc. But he does what it says on the tin, mate. He scores goals. He's got an eye. He's a big lad. I know, good old-fashioned English centre-forward sort of character, but they seem to be dwindling now. They're very short, aren't they? We don't have many of those anymore. But brilliant. Just what he is. It says on the tin what he is, and that's exactly what you get.
Yeah, he's also scored 12 goals in 15 appearances for Norway, which is another pretty good return. I'll quickly, before I ask Mike his thoughts, tell you who he scored against, because sometimes that is important. He scored against Austria. He scored a couple of goals against Northern Ireland. Then he scored a hat-trick against Romania. He scored against Luxembourg. He scored against Netherlands. He scored against Latvia, and another hat-trick against Gibraltar. Maybe not the best teams out there, but he's like we said, he's scoring a goal a game. Mike, same question to you. You might get the same answer, but why is Erling Haaland such a hot property in Europe at the moment?
He's big, he's well fed, and his feet stick out the bed. It's Erling Haaland.
There's a song there somewhere.
There is indeed. He's a lot more than what people think. Obviously, he's 6'4". He's muscular, but he's got very, very quick turn of pace, and he's got good feet, as well as all those statistics that you mentioned. But I kind of disagree slightly with Bernard. I think that he'd fit in very well at City, because we need someone. We need a goal scorer, not no goal scorer. And I think that he would, because of his speed, he would adapt pretty well. And I think that Pep would adapt him. It might take a bit of a while, but just looking at the lineups that City have put out recently, imagine Erling Haaland in between maybe Phil Foden on one side, Raheem Sterling on the other. My goodness, he would be feasting on those opportunities that often go begging for us. And that goes the same for pretty much all of the big teams in Europe. Everyone's interested in him. Everyone wants to get him. We do. We've got the cash. Whether we can make peace with his agent is another issue.
Yeah. We'll look at that. And the thing is, he's only right now. He's 21. He'll be 22 in July. So he's got probably, if he can stay fit and fast, he's got a good 10 to 12 years ahead of him. At least 8 to 10, you'd think, at the highest level. If he's at a high, one of the highest levels already, and he's going to keep developing to an even higher level and a higher standard, he's got a good 10 years ahead of him. So, and that's another reason why I think everybody would want him. If we look around the leagues and look at the clubs that are serious, you know, Wigan would want Erling Haaland, but they ain't getting him. So let's look at who's serious and look at the big leagues. In Germany, I think there's only one place he can go, and that's Bayern Munich. In France, once again, one club, that's PSG. Italy, I mean, once again, I can't see past Juventus. You know, I'm not sure how much money the other clubs have really got. I'm not sure how much Juventus have got, but we'll come to them in a bit. Spain, you've got the big two, I think, in Real Madrid and Barcelona. Can't see him going to Atletico because they've already spent a lot of money recently. And then you're looking at England. And I think, you look at the big clubs who've got the money. I think that's important. You've got Liverpool, United, City, and Chelsea. I don't see anything beyond them, those four. So I think those are the ones who would want him. And if we want to look at I think the next step is, if I've missed somebody out, let me know. Is there any dark horses that, Newcastle? They'd offer him whatever he wanted, but I just don't see that. I just want to briefly talk about the money side of things, because people think it's so expensive. Yes, his transfer fees isn't that much, really, because it's on a buyout clause, and then there's his agent to pay and his dad and all that. But I think if you're talking about 75 million euros for his buyout clause, even if you have to pay his agent and his dad some money and it takes it over 100 million, I don't think all those clubs I've mentioned can't afford that, because you've got to remember, clubs pay usually in installments. There's only Newcastle who are throwing money around and paying up front at the moment, but everybody pays in installments, so usually over 2, 3, 5 years. I mean, I think Barcelona still owes some money from was it Denis Suarez or whoever it was? We sold them years ago, many years ago. We sold, so they owe us a little bit of money there. So the clubs pay in installments, and also they can borrow money. Barcelona have just taken out was it 600-700 million euro loan. So I think it's from Goldman Sachs. So they can borrow money to actually sort out the cash flow. It's the accounts and FFP that's the issue. And we've talked about amortization before. Very briefly, you look at what you paid for the player and divide that by the number of years on his contract, and that is the amortization that will hit your accounts every year. Simple example here: if he costs us 75 million euros, we get a 5-year contract. each year we will have 15 million in our accounts. That's 75 divided by 5, 50 million euros of amortization. The other thing that's going to hit the accounts is his wages. There's varying numbers being bandied about. Some people are saying he'll be on 500,000 a week. Some people saying he'll be on a bit more. Some saying up to 1 million a week. Don't actually know. So I'm just going to use a figure of 30 million, just as a 30 to 35 million as a ballpark. So if you add the amortization with his wages, you're looking at about 50 million euros a year. I don't think that's, once again, too much for each of these clubs. Now, it's an issue for these clubs if we had something like COVID again and football income is decimated by not having fans. And then, because no one expected this. And if something else happens that fans can't go to the grounds or there's a loss of income, we have a Great Depression around the world in a couple of years' time, and sponsors pull out of football or can't put the same level of money in, and then clubs might have an issue then. But I think if you look at it at 50 million euros a year is what you're going to have to pay in your accounts to satisfy FFP. I don't think that's a big issue. City have just paid for Jack Grealish. He's probably costing us 20, I reckon about 200 grand a week. That's 10 million a year. And his amortization will be about 16. So Jack Grealish is costing us about 35 million quid a year. It's not much of a leap to pay 50 million euros a year. So that's I think the financial element. But I want to quickly ask you guys about those clubs that I mentioned, and to see whether they could afford him because they've been spending money buying other players. Let's look at the big one. Real Madrid. Real Madrid just looks like they're getting Mbappe. He's going to cost them a lot of money, even though it's a free transfer. They'll pay him 50 million a year. Bernard, do you think that Real Madrid, he'd want to go there? And would they want him? And could they afford him?
I mean, obviously, you listen to the rumours. Obviously, he's saying he prefers Real Madrid, isn't he? He's actually the Spanish teams. Let's face it, I don't think Barcelona are really coming into this just at the moment the way they are. So, yeah, Real Madrid are the team that I think he does favour. But obviously, Mbappe going, it'd be an interesting combination. I don't know. I'm not too high up on what their forward line is now with the introduction.
He's their main man as well. He's early 30s.
But I mean, having Mbappe by your side up front isn't a bad thing, is it? Let's be honest. He's going to have no one beside him as a striker at City. That's for sure. All right, we might have Sterling and Mahrez and these guys and Foden, which are feeding it, but they're not out and out strikers, are they? And that's still a worry for me, even though, as I say, but that's the problem. And I think. I just think if Real Madrid have in their plans and they've got the money, obviously they're far better situation than Barcelona are, but they've still got problems, I think, haven't they? Real Madrid as such. They've still got to be careful. Yeah, I mean, obviously they've got to be careful with things, but I think that's his favourite option. I mean, Bayern Munich are very quiet. I just think they're so quiet. I do worry because we don't hear much about Bayern Munich and Erling Haaland. I certainly haven't heard much about it. And that's a big worry for me because Dortmund to Bayern Munich is the usual thing, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. But I personally, I think he wants Real Madrid now, obviously, with this Mbappe thing. The agent might, they might know something more than we do, but that sort of either put the kibosh on it, or it might be just the other piece in the jigsaw to get him across, come the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think Barcelona are probably out of it. They've obviously had well-documented issues with their finances, and as I said, they've got this loan so they can afford for spending money. They can do that, but it's their wages that has been an issue, and they've been struggling to even register players that they've got on freeze because the wages are too high. And I just think if they got Haaland now, they'd have to put him on low wages. And that's one of the reasons, one of the ways they've got around this issue is by putting players on lower wages and then I think increasing the wages or giving them a bonus after a few years' time when they think or when they hope they've sorted their finances out. So, really put the bulk of the money towards the end of the contract, so that they can get through right now. But so I don't think they'll be in for. I don't think Juventus, because they just got Vlahovic, who is an out-and-out striker, and I don't think they can have him and Haaland and pay them the money for FFP. So we're left with PSG. What do you think about PSG, Mike? Is that a good option, with who they've got at the moment?
Well, if Mbappe goes to Real Madrid, as everyone is speculating, then there's a kind of a big hole which he could easily fill. That seems more likely to me than him going to Real Madrid, because you're not going to have both Mbappe and Haaland. I think that's too much for them. Last figures I saw, Real Madrid were nearly $1 billion in the hole. They were just under Barcelona. So I don't think they're going to get both of them. There's going to be one or t'other. And I think Mbappe seems a good bet for Real Madrid. As for Haaland, well, we haven't actually mentioned United or Liverpool. Are they?
Well, we'll come to England. I think we'll come to England last.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop you there, Mike. The thing is about the finances, they can sort out the debt by taking on some more debt, which isn't clever. But because Haaland is only 75 million euros, because Mbappe is coming on a free, that's practically nothing. So your amortization is 15 million euros a year for the two of them. It's the wages that are the big issue. And because I think if you had to pay 200 million for Mbappe and 200 million for Haaland, then Real Madrid couldn't afford them both and then pay their wages. It's just impossible. The numbers would just blow your mind. But getting them so cheaply for 75 million instead of 400 million, that's doable. So I wouldn't discount, Real Madrid, but PSG. I mean, remind me of some of their attacking talent at PSG that might attract Mr. Haaland.
Well, yeah, because I mean, obviously, when I was talking, I was saying I was saying Real Madrid is his preferred option, but I personally think PSG are the sort of main lights in this. I mean, let's face it, Messi's not getting any younger, is he either? So, and he's not exactly pulling up trees at the moment either. So, obviously, with Mr. Neymar up front, obviously, they've still got room. I think got room for Mr. Haaland, and he might not want to go there. It might not be his first option. But if obviously the English clubs aren't going to come in and offer them sort of wages, PSG will.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. He could. I mean, it'd be nice to have a year or two playing with Messi. You got a Neymar there as well. You've got a very good chance of winning the French league every year, and then you got the Champions League, and you've got the money behind you. And surely, I mean, and you also got the option of doing what Mbappe did, go there for 4 years and then move on for a huge contract. So do you think, how much of a draw do you think PSG would be, Mike? You're looking at all those factors.
I don't know. I don't know, because I've been following most of the reports for the last year. I've never seen him linked to them very much, and I've never seen him express any interest in them. Although, obviously there's the draw of playing with Neymar and Messi. I mean, that seems logical. It's just they've never been linked. I mean, only now is it kind of being their name being put into it. In fact, this particular show we're doing now will be one of the very few that has seriously linked him with PSG.
Well, the other thing is, obviously, we look at finances. PSG are losing Mbappe. I don't know what they were paying Mbappe. Let's say that's 30 or 40 million quid a season, 30 million quid. So they've got that space in their finances to be able to get Haaland in and to pay him. So I don't, and let's be honest, Mike, PSG always managed to make the finances work one way or the other. They always manage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my point, is that they could afford him. They could come up with the money. There's a logical space there for him if Mbappe goes. My only small point, and it is a small point, is that he's never expressed any interest in them.
Yeah.
Not that I've seen anyway.
Let's move along to England, where it's happening. Most of the big managers are at the moment. We've got Klopp, we've got Conte here, we've got Tuchel, we've got Pep, we've got Ragnick, and I'm just joking there, guys. But it would have been nice if you laughed. But anyway, we've got the main clubs in England. Okay, so let's look at them individually. Let's start off on Merseyside. Bernard.
Everton aren't going to come in for him, mate. I'm sorry.
Let's start off with Liverpool. What are the chances of that happening, finance-wise and everything else?
Well, they picked up this other lad, haven't they? The guy from Portugal, obviously now. Obviously, if Salah decides to sign a new contract any time soon, that's not a big problem, is it? I just can't see him going to Liverpool unless Salah does one, unless Salah goes, and they might be interested. And again, wage-wise, it would obviously be a hell of a lot of money, even by Liverpool standards as well. I mean, obviously, the only one I can see someone close to us paying silly money, but I think Liverpool don't normally do that. I don't believe, as I say, and I think they're quite happy now with this new Portuguese lad they've got. I don't think there are any plans in the next year or two to actually bring in someone else.
Yeah, when you look at it, they got Jota, they got Firmino, Salah, Mane, and Diaz, and unless someone goes, and they haven't got. I don't think they got the money. I don't think they got the money, because if you're going to pay Salah somewhere in the region of 350,000-400,000 a week, it's squeezing you. It's really squeezing you. So I think that's not going to happen. Let's move on to let's go look at in London, Mike. Chelsea. What are the prospects? What are the chances of him going to Chelsea? I mean, bright lights of London, European champions.
Yeah, well, there is that, but Chelsea have really spent an absolute shed load on attacking options. Now, they haven't really worked out that well for them. And there was a fair bit of talk maybe about 3-4 months ago about him going to Chelsea. But you think of who they've spent on. They've got Ziyech. They've got the two Germans. I don't really see that myself, but Roman Abramovich can never be ruled out. I mean, he is quite prepared to splash the cash, and that is an area where they have been very inconsistent up front, despite all the money they've spent. So that would be a possibility, I think.
Yeah, I think they spent 50-odd million on Werner and about 85 on Havertz. It's possible that you just let one of them go. Maybe Timo Werner, maybe let Ziyech go as well. And I think they are going to let some other players go and get some good money coming in from people like, I think, well, maybe not great money from Ross Barkley. I think he'll go. And one or two others. But they just re-signed Rudiger, I think, on a nicer contract. So, at some point it affects Chelsea as well, because FFP, you can't get around FFP by pumping money in. So I just don't see it's not going to be easy unless they get rid of a few bodies. And then we've got Manchester. Manchester and Trafford. But let's look at Trafford first. Even though their finances have been hit this season, last couple of seasons, and actually City have got a higher turnover than them now. They've still got the ability to buy, and we see they've got the ability to throw money around and waste it and buy everything. Bernard, can you see it? The fact that his dad was a City player, going across that divide to play for United just for the money.
Yeah, I don't really buy into the obviously City shirt when he was a kid sort of aspect of it. To be honest with you, I don't think that really come into it. In the same way that when you look at City and you think of the future and obviously what's going to happen with Pep, etc., you look at United and think, what the hell's going to happen? And if this guy's got any sort of footballing brain, all right, his agent might have a big say in it, but at the end of the day, it's him. It is his decision. And why the hell would anyone at this point in time unless they can sell United and say we're getting such and such a manager come June, July, and this is his plans for the future. You've got to sell United now. I mean, I'm sorry, they can probably pay quite a lot of money, and I don't think Haaland is that mercenary that he'll just accept a load of money to play for a team that at the moment doesn't seem to have any vision from playing football to the boardroom to wherever it is. There's no real vision going forward. The fans aren't happy. You can see, everyone knows that in the world, that the fans aren't happy with what's going on. So really, that takes them out of the equation on the basis of that. But purely on the financial point of view, yeah, of course United will pay him whatever he wants. He pay him triple probably what City might offer him or something like that. But at the end of the day, if he did something like that, it would just be mercenary, because there's nothing in what United are doing to inspire any footballer to want to go there who's got any real ambition at the moment. It might change, as I say, they might get their act together, but at this point in time, not a cat in hell's chance, because why would you go if he wants to play football and play for a good team and build, keep carrying on with his career? You just wouldn't go to United at the moment.
Yeah, and Mike, that leaves us with the best team in the land and all the world. That's Man City, of course. What do you think the pros and cons are of us trying to sign Haaland this summer?
I think one big con is our history with his agent, and I think we've been burnt by him before. He is a devious customer, and it's not beyond the scope of possibility that he might. It's not that we couldn't get him, but maybe 1-2 years into a 5-year contract, and his agent starts the rumor mill and starts talking about him moving on. And City, despite what Ferran Torres said, are not anybody's placeholder. So I think that's a problem, and I don't really know how much Pep wants him. That's something that hasn't really been made clear. But then again, he's well advised to keep his cards close to his chest on that score anyway. So that you can't read too much into that. He seems to have a good relationship with Phil Foden. They talk in each other's ear. I don't see too many cons there. One thing is that City have never really been in a serious running for one of the grand marquee players, the 100 million plus players. So that is not necessarily a very good sign, but maybe it's time that we did that.
I think we have been interested in Messi a couple of times. We would have taken him a few years ago.
But not in a situation where you're looking at spending over 100 million.
Or City would have spent 100 million pounds to buy Messi a few years ago. Yeah. A good close friend said that City had everything in place, but he stayed at Barca. So I think we could have done that. Mike, do you think the possibility of Pep having his last season at City next year, would that naturally detract or make City less of a attractive proposition for Haaland?
Oh, absolutely, it would. But he's never going to come out and say that, Pep. He's never going to come out and say next season is my last one. We'll only find out about that just before it happens. I mean, he's indicated that he would be willing to, providing all things are equal, he would sign another contract, probably not a long one, maybe a year or two. But I really think that this is Pep's last club, football club. I think he'll be an international manager after that and take it a bit easier. But I think that there's no way that he is going to give any indications about how much time that he's got left. We'll just know about it when we hear that he's on his way. That will not be announced. So I don't know. Haaland doesn't know that. None of us know that. So I'm sure he's confident of at least having Pep there for a year or two. But that's the con.
Before we look at how much of an impact he'd make at City, I'd like each of you to think where he might go and how much of an impact. If we're going to discard most of the clubs, basically, I think we're only left with leaving ourselves with PSG, Real Madrid, and City. If those are his options, where do you think he'll say, "Yep, that's where I want to go," and why?
So you're giving us those three options.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, I'll give you Chelsea as well. I'll throw Chelsea into the mix because they can afford him.
Well, it's interesting with Haaland, isn't it? Because did you say he was 21, 22?
22 in the summer.
Yeah, I just feel as though he's going to have another stepping stone. I think especially with that agent, this is going to be a 3 or 4 year thing, and he'll go move on to someone else, perhaps move on to Barcelona when they've got a bit of money in 4 years' time or something like that. I think that's going to be the problem with Haaland now, convincing him to actually stay at a club for obviously if we get Haaland, we're talking what 10 years. He said before, didn't you? 10, you got a good 10, 12, 10 years at least out of him, but I don't think at this stage in his career any club's going to get that, to be honest with you. So he might go for a middle term thing, and if he does do that, then yeah, I mean I can see City coming a bit more into favouritism as far as doing that, and then he's a bit not as open as Torres was used as a stepping stone, but obviously 4 or 5 years down the line, once Pepper's gone as well, let's face it, he might be gone in 18 months, never mind 4 years. That's a reason for him to move on again. As I said, other teams will come into the frame then. The Italian teams might be a bit better off in 4 or 5 years' time, stuff like that. So, yeah, he could do, or even PSG. PSG could be a good stepping stone. There's a chance he could win a Champions League there. He can play with Messi, he can play with Neymar and the guys there. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at it from that point of view, then obviously... he could do that. He could sort of look at someone like PSG and City, but obviously not say, well, yeah, okay, yeah, of course, I'll sign a 4 or 5 year contract, but there's no commitment more than that. And then when we go and ask him to renew in a couple of years, if he's doing the business, he'll say, no, I'm not renewing, and then we'll know then, won't we? But,
yeah, absolutely. So if you're going to
I think he's too young. I think he's at that age where I think he's got manoeuvrability, and with that agent, of course, he's definitely got manoeuvrability because he'll want another payday, of course, at some stage.
So nearly colours to the mast, Bernard. Where's he going?
I think he's coming to City. No,
oh, Bernard.
I'd love him to come to City, but I think we've got problems with a certain KDB and stuff like this, and wages and stuff like other players might take the ump about it, because he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but you have to prove it. And I think KDB's. I think I'm right in saying he's paid more a basic wage. Now, some of the other guys are on bonuses and stuff, aren't they? But KDB gets paid in a total whack, doesn't he? So obviously,
get bonuses. I think that it's weighted that way. Otherwise, if you start paying somebody a massive basic, everybody else wants it. So
that is the problem. So I mean, based on the fact it might be a stepping stone, I don't want it to be City, to be honest with you. I wouldn't want him to just use us as a stepping stone. No, I think, as I say, I still think Bayern Munich might be the dark horse in all this as well. But that might be his eventual thing. I'd still go for PSG, although as Mike was saying before, there's no real links as such to PSG. But we just know you don't necessarily have to have links. They'll just wave the money at Raiola, or that's his name, his agent, and he'll go. And it's as simple as that. And he'll go somewhere else to finish off his career, a bigger club than PSG.
Yeah, Mike. So what are your thoughts on where you think he might end up this summer?
Well, I don't know, guys, did you see or read the quotes from an interview he had recently where he's talking about atmosphere and how much it means to him, and talking about the fact that you don't get that in Germany. But, he bigged up the Premier League, so he's definitely going to come here at some point. Maybe, unfortunately, there's kind of a good point and a bad point about this, but I think that he might well come to City, but he will move on from City. And unfortunately, he might look at us as a stepping stone. But as far as I'm concerned, I'll be your stepping stone. Come on. hurt me. But I think there's a good chance that he could come to City. That would be my bet, because I think that, as I said, Real Madrid, they've got Mbappe coming. I don't think they're going to play together, and I just think that the French league is not competitive enough. And and he's talking about atmosphere. Well, you get atmosphere every week in the Premier League, but you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it from mid-table to lower-table French teams. So
yeah. The last question, then I'll start with Bernard again. How much of a difference do you think he's going to make to City? We know City have been playing with this false nine, and it's been very effective. But if you take a body away from that false nine, if you argue that you've got 5 players who are just interchangeable and flexible, and then you have someone like Haaland who's, for argument's sake, a little bit more static, you've now got 4 players who are flexible. So you've got one less body floating around. You're going to have maybe a little bit less control, a little bit less possession, and maybe you don't create as many chances. But when you do create chances, you've got a guy who's going to stick him in. So how do you think, how much of an impact will he make?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, obviously, if you look at the City games recently, there's always been 3 or 4 players not performing anyway. So obviously, having another guy stuck in there isn't going to make a lot of difference, because there's always somebody. We're not all at it. We're not all at it, if you like. And what I thought at the start of this season, and obviously it's such a pity he got injured. I thought Delap was going to get a few little run outs, and obviously he got injured, which actually put the kibosh on that. I think that would have been a good testing thing because obviously if Haaland did come, obviously Pep would have to change the system totally when he couldn't play. He can't play every game. We've just got one guy. So I thought Delap was going to be groomed, if you like, for being a Haaland type player, and obviously as cover for him, etc. In cup, Coca-Cola Cup and Carabao Cup and FA Cups and stuff like that. And that sort of put a kibosh on that plan, I think, didn't it? To be honest with you, but I think, as I said before, he would have to change. He'd have to change his system, but Pep's good at that. Pep's good at adapting. It's whether the players can quickly adapt to it. That's the thing. Pep can change the system, but as we know, with that Southampton game, there was enough balls flashing across that box. So if you got Haaland in there somewhere, it'll make a big difference. So as you say, we still play the same football, but obviously you'll have a guy in that 6-yard box who perhaps can read the game a little bit better and get on the end of some of them crosses that were flying in against Southampton. If Haaland had been playing against Southampton, we would have had to take someone out, of course, but we would have won that. We would have won that game 3-4-1 perhaps, or something like that, if Haaland had been playing, because we did create chances. There's no doubt about it. It just didn't have a focus. We didn't have a central, someone in the middle to actually make the most of it. So, yeah, we would have to change slightly, but that's why I was a bit upset, because I thought Delap might have had a little run this season, but obviously with that injury that put him out, that knocked that back a bit. And I thought that was the old plan. I thought, if Haaland did come, we'd have Delap as well, and they'd probably Delap would probably be moulded into the way Haaland plays, and vice versa with the City team.
Mike, I mean, 2 points then to finish, Mike. Is it actually the right time this summer for Pep to change the system? Because this will be our second year of this false nine, and teams will eventually get used to it, and they will find ways to deal with it better than they've been currently doing. So is this just a natural time for Pep to evolve, to go forwards? And the final point is, we've just got this kid called Julian Alvarez for 17, 18 million euros. And, he's going to be coming to City. Do you think that makes any difference as to what we do with Haaland?
Well, I think it probably is time for a change. I think that there are some teams starting to be effective with this, Southampton being one of them. And so we've got certain teams that haven't quite got our number, but are getting very familiar. It would throw a spanner in their works if we got someone like Haaland in there. The point about Julian Alvarez is an important one. That's much more of the type of player that Pep likes, and he really is a dead ringer for Aguero in many ways. So the strongest argument I feel against Haaland coming is Alvarez, because I think that he's ready. I mean, he's scored like 20 odd goals for River Plate this time round, and he is right at the spot where Pep would have probably have loved to get Aguero when he was about that age. So that's the biggest argument against Haaland coming, and I could see that. I could see Pep deciding that he's going to work with him.
Would we be the best team going? Would we win everything if Haaland was at City?
Well, I tell you what, when City revert to their plan B of knocking crosses into the box, at least you'd have someone there to head them in.
Yeah.
And obviously he could take our penalties. We'd have a sort of fixed penalty taker. So yeah, I mean he's when he came from Austria into Germany, people, it was a jump in level, and he's still doing it, for Dortmund. So I don't think there's any question that he would score a bag full for City. But I got a sneaking feeling that Pep is going to make Alvarez his little project, and
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Alvarez as well, I mean, he's only 5'7", 5'8" or something in height, and yet he looks bigger. If you've watched him, he looks bigger than that. He's only little, but he has a presence, even though he's not a physically big lad in the way Haaland is. Of course, he's 6'4", isn't he? Haaland is 6'4", but Alvarez certainly has a presence, and he shrugs off players as well, from what I've seen. From bits, obviously you only see bits and pieces, don't you? But I was dead surprised he was only 5'7", 5'8", because he looks bigger stature than that when he's playing. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's our little look at Erling Haaland, just to see where he might end up this summer. I think the guys have basically said no. Mike doesn't mind him being City being a stepping stone, but Alvarez is the one, and I think Bernard is sending him somewhere in Europe. But it won't be long now, guys. We're in February now.
Well, whatever happens, Dortmund want him to sort out where he's going, don't they? He keeps getting pressure off them.
He doesn't stay at Dortmund he says, look, I'll stay another couple of seasons just to see what my options are, just to see where the Spanish clubs get a bit more money. And I might just stick it out at Dortmund and hope that, COVID's gone and my next move is going to be humongous. Whatever the kid does, he's going to be as rich as he wants to be. He's going to have the sports deals with Nike or Adidas or Puma, whoever he ends up with, paying him 100 million over like 6 or 7 seasons, so 6 or 7 years. He's going to be as rich as he could ever want to imagine he would be. So you'd like to think it's not just about money.
Does he sell shirts, Ray Haaland?
He might shift shirts. So, can you imagine him at Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, at City, or United, or wherever he goes, he'll shift shirts. He'll shift them. But we'll wait and see, guys. It's not going to be long. I reckon we'll find out within the next 4 to 6 weeks or so.
In the next 48 minutes, he could be on his way. He could be here now having a medical.
He's on his way. Yeah, Sam Lee just Haaland's here. I think we'll just wait a little bit longer on that. Guys, thank you so much for joining me and talking about this wonderful talent that is Erling Haaland. And let's see if he's City-bound in the summer or somewhere in Europe. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, guys.
Cheers.